Dam Giri Paramaho Radhika Madhava Sham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shigurun Taunatosmi He Guru Gyanadadina Bandho Sananda Data Kurunaika Sindho Vrindavana Sinahitavata Prasida Radha Pranaya Pracharo He Dina Bandho Kurunaika Sindho Kuru Prasada Mai Mandamudhe Laksha Paradhe Bahupapa Gadhe Tatpada Padme Stumatishra Krishna Naivo Payantya Pachitim Kavayastavesha Rama Yusha Prikrita Mridam Udasmaranta Yontar Bahistanubritam Ashubham Vadunvam Acharya Chaitya Vapusha Swakatim Vyanakti. I bow down to the beautiful lotus feet of my spiritual master, by whose causeless mercy I have obtained the supreme holy name, the divine mantra, the service of the son of Shachimata, the association of Srila Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and his older brother Sanatana Goswami, the supreme abode of Mathura, the blissful abode of Vrindavan, the divine Radha Kunds and Govardhan Hill, and the desire within my heart for the loving service of Sri Radhika and Madhava in Vrindavan. O spiritual master, O giver of divine wisdom, O friend of the fallen, you are the giver of your own bliss, and you are the only ocean of mercy. Although dwelling in Vrindavan, you have descended for the welfare of fallen souls like myself, and you are preaching the divine love of Radha for Krishna. Please be kind upon me. O friend of the lowly, O Gurudev, you are the only ocean of mercy. I'm a dull fool and have committed hundreds of thousands of offenses. I have fallen into a dense myriad of sins. Therefore grace me with your mercy, so that my mind may be fixed on your lotus feet and on Sri Krishna. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma, for you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. Our only wish is to have our consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opened our darkened eyes and fills our hearts with transcendental knowledge. He is our Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. Spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevalabha Gati Sadma Bando Mui Savadana Jahara Prasade Bhai Bhavato Diya Krishna Prapti Hoy Jao रघुदान दिलो जय धन्य धन्य प्रभु से ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशिता ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशिता प्रेमा भक्ति जाते अभिजग विनाशा जाते प्रेमा भक्ति जाते अभिजग विनाशा जाते गिरिजा जहर चरिता गिरिजा जहर चरिता श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अगम जनाना बंधु Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine Srimate Bhaktivedanta Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschatya Rishatharine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Radha Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jai Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotara Satashi Shrimad Bhai Charanada Vinda Bhaktivedanta Swayama Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotara Satashi Shrimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gokubinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Nam Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Navadip Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Sambhita Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to simple devotees. All glories to simple devotees. All glories to the simple devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Om. Srimad Bhagavatam. Welcome everyone to ISKCON of Silicon Valley. Please make yourselves at home. Every realm is defined by the sound vibration. So when you come here, the sound vibration is all focused on Krishna. And this is the great science that the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught, that one can be in contact with the spiritual world through being in contact with the sound vibration of the spiritual world. For instance, the Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada Muni says, Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokamabhadya vatyapi namanyanantashe yashon kitani yat shrinvanti gayanti grananti sadhava. That the sound of the Srimad Bhagavatam is not from this world, it's a different creation altogether. And that when one hears it, then one's life will be transformed. Viplava. And Namanyanantasya means that it's full of the names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His pastimes. Shrinvanti Gayanti Grananti Sadhava means that persons who are eager to advance in devotional service will take advantage of hearing this. What to speak of the chanting Hare Krishna, it's an import, Golo Kera Prema Dana Hari Nama Sankirtana, which means that the chanting Hare Krishna doesn't come from this world, it's imported from Goloka Vrindavan. And if one embraces the chanting of Hare Krishna, one's life is similarly improved and transformed. We revive our spiritual nature. After having been in the material world since the time immemorial, Prabhupada says that's from before even this creation. If one comes in contact with the sound vibration through the Guru Parampara, that is, the mood is important, therefore it's passed down with the mood of pure devotional service from one teacher to student, and then it's passed to the next generation in the same mood. Then That's a connection with the holy name is the essence of spiritual practice. So we're going to start with a song about the spiritual worlds. It's called Jairana Madhava. And we'll do the first one, number 1. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Rama, Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Thank you everyone for coming to the Bhagavatam class. For those of you who came all the way here, it's a great endeavor. And for those of you who are sitting online, it's another kind of tapasya. But it's all worth it because lending one's time, actually time's being lent to us, but when you use that loan in as an investment in hearing and chanting, then you could never go wrong. It's often a conundrum about how to use one's time. We have certain energy levels and sort of the mind may be interested in one thing or another. But if one can develop the habit and then a taste for the hearing about Krishna from various sources, for instance, we have the Bhagavad Gita, which is of interest to our intelligence. We have an intelligence, but sometimes it remains underutilized, or it's utilized for inventing new ways to have sense gratification, and in which case it becomes polluted. This is mentioned in the third chapter, I should say, Prabhupada mentions it in the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where he says that the eternal enemy of the soul is lust or kama. And that means that one's interested in one's own gratification rather than gratifying Krishna, which is out of place because we're part of Krishna just as much as a finger is part of our hand. And when it's part of our hand and part of our body, then we call it a finger. But when it's severed, which is a gruesome thought, a severed finger, nonetheless it's not so much of a finger anymore. It's a useless, whatever you want to fill in the blanks with. It's a morning show, so I don't want to be too graphic or macabre. But the way that the finger is useful is when it cooperates with the body. And similarly, when we have a sense of serving Krishna, then we feel satisfied because we're acting according to our eternal nature. And so hearing Bhagavad Gita purifies the intelligence. And this is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita itself, where Krishna says that one who listens to this dialogue between myself and Arjuna worships me by his intelligence. And by purifying the intelligence, then one has an opportunity to become self-directing. That is, if we're not clear about what the purpose in life is, then we'll be ruled by our senses. And Krishna says, Indriyani priyanyahur indriyebhya paramanaha manasastu parabudhiryo budhe paratastu saha. Lowest of all are the senses, and above the senses is the mind. And above the mind is the intelligence, but above the intelligence is the soul. So Prabhupada mentions, as does Krishna, he's following Krishna's lead in this last part of the 3rd chapter of the Gita, that there are strategic points at which, Prabhupada says, this lust, which is a product of the Rajogun, the mode of passion, occupy various aspects of our life. And that sometimes it occupies the senses. If you may have noticed, sometimes the senses are attracted to a particular object, even though you say, no, that's not right, stop it. Still, we use our intelligence to say the result of that contact will not be favorable for me. Therefore, we restrain ourselves. And then if the lust or Rajogun occupies the mind, then the mind becomes a dwelling place for sense gravitatory ideas. And then if it takes over the intelligence, that's getting in a higher realm of our existence. In the hierarchy, intelligence is higher than mind or senses. Then we're really in trouble. And a society which is dominated by Rajogun and where people's intelligence is dedicated to it, and we get what we have today, which is a very frenetic society, and rarely is there a invention that is helpful for bringing peace. It's more towards agitating the mind a little more, or even when the mode of ignorance enters in, then it's towards how we can be more effective at killing others, either animals or humans. And human beings, when they use their intelligence, can think of lots of ways to blow up more people. So it's important to hear from Krishna to purify one's intelligence. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, as we just heard, Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu. The abhadra. Bhadra means something that's good for us, that's auspicious. Things are lining up. In fact, the word auspicious comes from a configuration of birds in the sky. Someone who knows how to read omens. Anybody here an omenologist? You could put that on your resume. What do? I'm an omenologist. I read nature and I can tell what's going to happen. So there were omenologists, and they would see a configuration of birds in the sky and say, oh, something good's going to happen. That's where the word auspicious comes from. And bhadram means that what's most favorable for us, which puts us in the most advantageous position. And when we come in contact with the material nature, there's a sense of contamination that perverts our desires, or we desire things that aren't good for us. So this is abhadra. It's inauspicious. It's a bad sign. Someone who knows the science of Bhagavad Gita can look at somebody's life and say, oh, this is inauspicious. Although you may think you're happy now, it's going in the wrong direction. In your next life, you could take birth in a disadvantageous situation, even though you feel that you're the king of the world now. In your next life, you're going to be compromised. And therefore, having that knowledge, Krishna says in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when he describes the souls leaving the body, he says, Ukramantam stitam vapi bhunjanam bhagunanbitam vimudha nanupashyanti, that those who are very foolish because they don't take time to read the Bhagavad Gita, they don't see what's really going on. Pashyanti jnana chakshusha, but those who do study the Bhagavad Gita and understand the science, they have eyes of knowledge, jnana chakshusha. So, nashta praisho bhadreshu, nityam bhagavata sevaya means that there has to be a regularity in hearing the Bhagavatam. This means constantly you should hear Bhagavat and speak about the pastimes of Krishna and his devotees, or at least once a day. Is that fair enough? We all sign on to that? At least once a day, organize your schedule so you can hear Bhagavatam every day. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. And then when one's able to do that, one comes to this steadiness in devotional life. It's very important. It's a sense that I'm no longer being dominated by my lower nature. My intelligence has become spiritualized, and now I have this firmness in my practice of devotional service, that I have a place to stand. Nishta. So the pastimes of Krishna are pleasing to hear because Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An ordinary person has activities in the world, no doubt, and we can hear about them, but they don't have the same effect as hearing about Krishna. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma cha me divyam, that my birth and my activities are transcendental. They're divyam, they're divine. And this is the great benefit of bhakti yoga. We like to hear stories about people. True or false? What's the evidence that it's true? Movies. People magazine. I'd like to enter into evidence. People magazine. One of the best-selling magazines. There's People magazine. We want to see people. What do they do? What do they say? What do they wear? We want to see. And then every movie, if it didn't have any people, we wouldn't be that interested in it, right? We want to see people. We want to hear what they say, what they do, where they go. There's a plot to the whole thing. So those kind of stories about people, or People magazine, doesn't help us to advance spiritually, but when you hear about Krishna's pastimes, he says, Janma karma chanme divyam evam yo veti tattvata. And by hearing about Krishna, you come to understand his nature, his transcendental nature, in truth. Tyakva deham, this is a sort of a startling thought to bring up early in the morning, but tyakva deham, should I say what it means? When you give up the body. That's a major test time. It's a time when we're tested. Tyakva deham. Deha means body, and tyakva means it's finished. Tyakva deha punarjanma naiti means that if you have this knowledge of Krishna, you've cultivated throughout your life, and you heard about Krishna's transcendental activities and nature, you understand them in truth by hearing, and that's not that we do study the science, but just by hearing you can come to know. It's not that you have to be a great scholar. You could be illiterate and take to devotional service. If you just sit and hear and submissively hear, then everything is revealed from within the heart, because bhakti is about revelation. It's not that we're self-made in devotional service, although I said we're self-directing. We have to have some space to have freedom of choice and to use our free will properly. But we're not self-made. We're made by Krishna. He gives us the facility of the material world, and he also, if he sees that we're sincere about hearing, that's the main point, that he'll also show us how to extricate ourselves from the material world. Krishna very sweetly says this in the Bhagavad Gita. Which verse? Saribhutadi Daivamam. How about 10:10? That's what I was thinking. Tesham satata yuktanam vajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayandi. Consider this verse. Krishna says, if somebody sincerely engaged in devotional service, to them, he says, Tesham satata yuktanam, they're always trying to connect with me, especially by hearing. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam, they're worshiping me. They're doing bhajan. Bhajan happens in bhakti in 9 different ways. See if I get my fingers lined up properly here. How many do I have? Hey, okay. There's hearing, chanting, remembering. These are the first 3. So we're talking about hearing, and if you submit yourself to the hearing process, submitting means that even if you don't feel like going there at first, if you submit to it, then naturally, gradually, bhajatam priti purvakam, you become dear to Krishna. It's amazing. If you sit and hear about him, you become dear to him. Dadami means to give something. So Krishna gives you a gift, dadami. And what is that gift? Buddhi, intelligence. Yogam tam. He shows you how to connect to him. Tesham, them, Tesham satati yuktanam, to those people who are always engaged like this, bhajatam priti purvakam, their sense is that they like Krishna. They want to hear about him. Dadami, to those people, I give something. I give buddhi, yogam, tam, yenamam upayanti te. Scroll down, please. Upayanti te. What is the intelligence they give? How to come to him. And it's about time, because when the soul comes to the material world, Krishna's kindly given us an unlimited variety of activities to do in the material world, and an unlimited number of bodies, just so we can figure out for ourselves that we don't want to be separate from him. And when one comes to that conclusion, then Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that one doesn't have to take birth again here in the material world ever again. A lesson learned. We fully understand, we fully embrace Krishna if we missed it the first time, and we're able to give ourselves in loving devotional service to him. So this is the system authorized by the great acharyas to hear about Krishna. Now, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are several sections of Krishna's pastimes. Krishna's childhood is mentioned. Of course, the Bhagavatam doesn't start off with his pastimes. It starts off with explaining the truth of Krishna, who he is. And the first words that come from the mouth of Srila Vyasadeva, who's presenting the Srimad Bhagavatam, describe Janmadhyasya yataha, that who is Krishna? He's the source of everyone and everything. Is there a parallel verse in the Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, aham sarvasya prabhava mattak sarvam pravartate iti matava bhajante imam buddha bhava samanvita. Let's look at that first, because it's very important. Janmadhyasya yataha, Krishna says, I'm the source of everything. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I'm the source of everything. So aham sarvasya is what I wanted to look at. 10.8. So here, scroll down, please. Scroll up. Stop. I, sarvasya, of all, prabhava, means a source of generation. So anything we see anywhere, it originally comes from Krishna. He makes this clear statement. As Vyasadeva is saying in the Bhagavatam, who is the absolute truth? It's Krishna. And what is the nature of Krishna? So first of all, it's like everything comes from him. Everything. And this is a way we find throughout the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam to remember Krishna. If we remember that everything comes from him, everything's connected to him. For instance, in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which all of you have about 1 week to completely memorize. I hope you've applied yourself. Krishna says, bijam, he says, rasoham apsukonteya. If you taste water, and you remember me, rasoham apsukonteya, prabhashmi, shashi shurya yo, that I'm the light of the sun and the moon. And then he's sound. He's sound and ether. And so on. He gives these different ways. You can see him through his energies and understand his impersonal aspect. And for devotees, out of gratitude, when they see his impersonal aspect, they think of his personality. And then they're connected with him through that. Okay, go back. Aham sarvasya pravava. And then he says, mattak, from me, sarvam, everything. That's a lot, isn't it? Do you agree? Yes. Everything's quite a lot. Pravartate, it emanates from me. So very interestingly, everything comes from Krishna. It's all his energy. And then if you know that, madhva, iti madhva bhajante, then you become devoted to Krishna. So what else would you do? This is something Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita also when he says, Bahunam jamanamante. Don't go there. Bahunam jamanamante jnanavam mam prapadyate. He says, after a long time hanging around the material world, if someone comes to a point of being a little intelligent, a jnani, and starts thinking about things, then after a long time, then Pravadyante Vasudeva Sarvamiti. That person becomes aware of the fact that Krishna is everything. Bahunam jamanamente jnanavam mam prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Sa Mahatma Sarva. That's a great soul. So, this is Buddha Bhava Samanvita. What happens when one becomes a great soul? You'll notice it. If you see yourself becoming a great soul, don't be alarmed. And also don't advertise it. You'll just notice that bhava, your mood is samanvita, with great attention. You want to hear about Krishna. You want to worship him. Bhajante means you become devoted. And what's the proof of devotion? That you want to hear. That's the main point. You can understand if you're devoted if you want to hear about Krishna. If you want to clear a room, open an Adi Lila. Let's read about the Chaturvyuha. And then it's like, I gotta go. I forgot. I have bowling practice tonight. So we can understand the level of our advancement by how much we're devoted to Krishna. We can understand our devotion. Jiva Goswami says this is a one-to-one correlation. To the degree that you're interested in hearing about Krishna, to that degree that you are advancing in devotional service. Period. Full stop. No other information needed at this point. Shuttamat gunamatrena maisarva guhashaye Manogatir avichnina yatagangam bato mudao lakshanam bhakti yogasya nirgunasya hudaritam ahaituki avyavahita ya bhakti purushottame. That's like, I saw this French troupe of actors when they were doing the Mahabharata, and many of them didn't speak English. They just had a little earphone in there, and they were saying the lines. It was fantastic, but I was surprised when I met them afterwards. I just happened to meet them at the airport because I was distributing books at LAX. And then I met the whole troupe, and we had just seen the 3 days of the Mahabharata. And I had to sell a Krishna book to Krishna. And he went around showing everyone and said, see, I don't look anything like him. In any case, this is an important point of breakthrough in one's spiritual life is when you hear Madguna Shruti Matrenas, Mai Sarva Guhashaye, means that just upon hearing about Krishna, he said, then the mind becomes like the Ganges. It just rolls, and nothing can stop it. And it goes around, under, over, whatever it has to do, it just follows it. And that's the first sign of advancement in devotional service beyond the modes of nature. You can understand you've conquered the modes of nature if you like to hear about Krishna. So, Throughout the Bhagavatam, we have the tattva, or an understanding of who Krishna is, starting with Janmadhyasya Yataha. He's the source of everything. And also, he's personal. Abhigna and Swarat means that he's not a dull stone. And he's also independent. He's fully independent, as you'd hope God might be. And then there's a description furthermore in the Bhagavatam about who we are. It's not that there's only God and there's no other distinctive entities, but there is the distinctive entities in the form of the souls. Some of them are conditioned and some of them are liberated. And Krishna is forever liberated, but the soul is tatastha. It can come under the control of material nature. But those who are liberated souls are those who have dedicated themselves to hearing about Krishna, at least who started in the material world and then have become liberated and they become part of the spiritual world. That's the prerogative of the soul. You can live in jail and eat jail food. That's the material world. Or you can be liberated and live with Krishna and have prasadam. Which would you like, jail food or prasadam? Yeah, it's good to have the choice. Most people don't even know they're in jail. So before we go on with some topics about Krishna, because we were all up late last night and we did a Harinam Sankirtan performance down at Lytton Plaza in Palo Alto, and it was a sight to behold. Anyone who walked down the street could not deny the fact that the spiritual world had manifested right there in the middle of Palo Alto. And I was myself feeling the contrast between what people were doing, which was the same old thing, going on dates and walking around to see if they could talk to some other people or show off the new pair of pants they just bought or whatever it might be. I mean, that's always fun, but there's a limit to it, enough's enough. And then the contrast between that, which is the same old boring thing over and over again, let's speak of the fact that it implicates one in the modes of material nature, and the Harinam Sankirtan, which is so much fun. Everyone likes to sing and dance, right? And if you sing and dance for Krishna, Janma Karma Chame Divyam, it's divine. His nature and all the activities are divine, so it's liberation. So before we go more into Krishna's, some of his pastimes, let's have a few questions. If you have any questions you want to ask about anything I said or about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, because that's always compelling. Oh yeah.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have a question about when you said that Krishna consciousness, it's about revelation. It's not like...
Is about what?
Revelation.
Revelation.
Like revealed, yeah. It's not about like that we are self-made. Is it any obstacles or is it just enough just to be attentive and hear Krishna Katha to be, so the knowledge will be revealed?
Are there any obstacles? Yes, there are some obstacles. One of them is to feel sleepy. And this is a response to not being that interested in Krishna Katha, because if somebody called you and told you won the lottery, you'd wake right up. $254 million. Say that again? He'd be wide awake, right? But if somebody says, Krishna moved all his devotees from Mathura to Dwaraka in the middle of the night, and they woke up there in golden palaces, and it's like, there's that. That's an obstacle. And then another obstacle is distraction, which means that I set out to hear about Krishna, but then I get distracted by something else that's in my environment or it's in my mind, and then I can't attend to the hearing and chanting. I just go off. And then there's a state of mind in which I just don't care. And that's kind of scary because there's no distraction and you're not sleepy, but you just don't care. That's also listed as an obstacle. And then there are obstacles that come from our senses being connected to their objects, and that keeps us preoccupied so that we don't have time to hear and chant because we're so absorbed in our own material self-interest that we can't attend to our real interests. So it requires, to overcome these obstacles, it requires a good association and many other aspects. This is why we have a society where we can come in, because we're not distracted here so much. If you're at home by yourself with your phone, you might get distracted because it might go bring, and you go, oh God, that could be, that's Robert calling me, and he told me he's going to repossess my car, or whatever it is. We could be distracted. So it's important to have a group to practice with and a schedule to keep, so that no matter what, you turn everything off every day at a certain time and you attend to your hearing and chanting, and have a way to overcome some of these obstacles. So those are obstacles, they can be overcome. Vaikuntha Nayaka Prabhu?
Pranam, Guru Maharaj. All those Prabhupada, all those to
Hare
you.
Krishna, Vaikuntha Nayaka. Good to see you.
Hare Krishna.
Is it warm
Maharaj,
down there?
no, it's pretty good weather here,
Okay.
so just right. Yeah.
South
Okay.
India.
Yeah. So Maharaj, actually I had one trivia to share and one question if we have time. Actually, since you mentioned about hearing, the importance of hearing, one devotee, I forget who he was in the class, he was saying that Srila Prabhupada gave the maximum number of talks on this one shloka of Bhagavad Gita, 7.1, which says that, okay, now here, where Krishna says, now here, Tachruno, right? So I thought that was very interesting, particularly since you mentioned that actually the importance of hearing and how that is a measure of how much we are advancing in our devotional journey, right? And my question was on the distraction aspect, right? I was thinking sometimes it's possible to feel the mind says that, okay, these are things you have already know. These are things about hearing these things you have heard so many times. So there's a possibility of taking it for granted or not giving it the enough importance, thinking that, okay, these are all basics, I already know it, that kind of attitude. So if you could share some suggestions on how you cannot go into that kind of mode. Thank you.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur called effective hearing submissive hearing, which means that you put yourself in the care of the person you're hearing from. First of all, you should have a sense of trust that the person who's speaking to you, for instance, if you're reading Prabhupada's books, you should have a sense developed from studying the nature of the person, of Prabhupada, that you trust that he's presenting the Bhagavad Gita, as, for instance, as it is. And this is important to frame it in that way. And then if you have this sense of trust, you'll hear submissively, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, you hear everything. Once you're in a mood of submissive hearing, it's not that you're selectively hearing and say, I'll accept this, I won't accept that. Of course, it's also allowed to ask questions. If you have a doubt, this is a sign of intelligence, and you should ask the question to clear the doubt. But it isn't to reject the person, but it's to clear a specific aspect of what he or she is presenting. So, as an experience, we just listened to the whole fourth canto recently. And there was no break. There were breaks, but every day we devoted a set amount of time to hearing, and there was no days we took off. And I think it was 23 days it took us to finish the fourth canto. And when we listened to it from beginning to end, Prabhupada had repeated a few things. But after some time, it becomes like repeating the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. That's repetitious. But because it's transcendental, when you hear it, it doesn't feel that way. Or when you're able to appreciate it at a certain level, it doesn't sound repetitious. You want to hear it again and again. So those who are making spiritual advancement, who hear, "You're not your body," that becomes more and more interesting. I want to hear more about it. I want to be reminded I'm not my body, and so forth. And it doesn't seem repetitious at all. But I'll just say that the result of hearing a large section of the Bhagavatam, and one canto is a large section, at least for 23 days, because it's harder to do a lot more than that and still eat and take a little rest, is that one feels uplifted, transformed, and we find out that it's not as repetitious as we thought. There's so many details within that are important to edify us and to refine our intelligence. So what should we do? We should come to a point of not trying to overthink the process. Just submissively hear. And we can take the example of Prabhupada himself, who said that when he first went to hear from his guru, he didn't understand everything. It's a slightly different point than you're making, but the point was that he just listened and he didn't go away. And he said, and after some time, then the hearing had an effect. And it's interesting that the human apparatus, if you will, is specifically designed to hear spiritual sound. I mean, you can hear material sound too if you want to wreck the machine and throw away a really important gift that's been given to us. But it's specifically designed to hear transcendental knowledge. And if you apply yourself to it by not being judgmental, don't worry if it sounds repetitious. If you trust the source, keep hearing. Everything goes in, and everything will have an effect. And we can realize that in due course of time by continuing to hear. Yes?
Guru Maharaj, at one point you mentioned that the contact with material nature perverts our desire. Could you explain that more?
Let's look at the 14th chapter of the Gita, if you give me one. All I ask here at a Hare Krishna temple is just one Bhagavad Gita. That's not a lot to ask from a Hare Krishna temple. Krishna, in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, speaks about how the soul comes in contact, 5 seconds or less, comes in contact with material nature. It's an important chapter. Krishna says it himself. This knowledge in the 14th chapter is very important. Here he says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Again, I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. The total material substance, called Brahman, is a source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharat. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. Material nature consists of the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. Prabhupada. The living entity, because he is transcendental, has nothing to do with this material nature. Still, because he has become conditioned by the material world, he is acting under the spell of the three modes of material nature. Because living entities have different kinds of bodies, in terms of the different aspects of nature, they are induced to act according to that nature. This is the cause of the varieties of happiness and distress. The cause of varieties of happiness and distress is the body you get. Once you get your body, you're going to enjoy or suffer in a certain way. And it's just like when you get a prison sentence and you're put in jail, you're going to eat prison food. Unless somebody sneaks you an avocado from time to time. But the way of the material nature is it conditions us. It puts us in a cell. And the cell is the body. If you get the body of an anteater, you're going to eat ants. That's your food. That's your prison food. If you get the body of a pig, let's not even get into it. And so these are conditionings by material nature. It's a way that the soul has strayed from the superior energy and become overwhelmed by the nature of the material world. Daivahi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. And it becomes very difficult for the soul in the material nature. It's a mamai vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanata. Manak shastan indriyani prakriti karshati. Grappling with material nature. It's an illusion to think there's happiness in the material world. It's suffering from beginning to end. There's never a time when one of the threefold miseries isn't jabbing us one way or another. Have you ever noticed? Think for 2 seconds, I'm okay, and it's like, wait a minute, what was that? Or a phone call or whatever, somebody looks at you the wrong way, and then you're immediately agitated again by the material nature. So this is our ways of becoming overwhelmed by the material nature and then becoming affected by it. It has two potencies, the material nature. It's the throwing potency and the covering potency. Throwing potency means that when we become averse to Krishna, then we're facilitated somewhere else. Like, you can leave the room. You're not in a resonance with the environment. And then covering potency means the material nature accommodates our mentality, and then we take on that material identity, which has nothing to do with our eternal self. Yes.
I also wanted to say that in the morning you mentioned about forever flawless. So that kind of correlates with what you were discussing about repetition in Prabhupada books, that it's forever flawless. Like you're saying, it's increasing. The more we read, the more we understand it.
Yeah, partly the mood of submissive hearing is it's all good for me. It's all prasad, it's all grace. And whatever way it comes to us, we'll appreciate it. There's ways of hearing where we may them become, if we don't hear submissively, we may hear with some motive. Better to hear in a surrendered way and just take the vibration as it is. If we want to become overly intelligent and try to outthink the Krishna's words, as many people do when they read the Bhagavad Gita, and they say, well, he doesn't really mean this, he means something else. Prabhupada gave this example of a great scholar from India, who also, I think he was a prime minister for some time, and he also wrote a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, and he was a lettered man, highly intelligent, but then he wrote a Bhagavad Gita in which he denied Krishna. He said, when Krishna says surrender to me, he didn't really mean that. He meant surrender to the unborn within Krishna, whatever that means. And that gives one the opportunity to say, well, okay, I'll just go on the way I am. So overly intelligent hearing is also not needed. And in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the Stita Di Muni. What's the verse number, please? You're going to like this. Even if you feel sleepy, you're going to like this. Number is? 256? Thank you. It's okay. Parampara is good. Okay, this is from 256. And this describes the real Muni. Now, a Muni means somebody who's overly intelligent, and no matter what somebody else has come up with as a philosophy, they want to do them one better. This is one of the ways that people approach philosophy in the material world. Whatever somebody else came up with, I'm going to think of something better or at least different, even if it's stupid. And the person who's come to the point of submissive hearing is a Stita Muni. That person's fixed in Krishna. They're thoughtful, but they're not trying to outthink Krishna. And here's the verse. Dukeshvanu vignam manaha, sukeshu vigataspraha, vita raga bhaya krodha stita dir muni urchite. Now try to find something that you find interesting when I read this purport, and then report it back. Are you ready? Okay. I'm not fully convinced, but I'll. Dukeshu means in the threefold miseries. Anuvigna mana, without becoming agitated in mind. Sukeshu, in happiness. Vigata spriha, without being interested. Vita, free from. Raga, attachment. Bhaya, fear. Krodha, and anger. Stitadi, whose mind is steady. Muni, a sage. Uchite, is called. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. Prabhupada's purport. The word muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every Muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a Muni differs from other Munis, he cannot be called a Muni in the strict sense of the term. Na sa vrashir yasya matam nabdinnam, from the Mahabharata, Vanaparva 313.117. But a Stita Dhir Muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary Muni. The Stita Dhir Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. Everyone has a little business going on in the material world. Like, what do you think? It's like, I'll tell you what I think. And it sounds almost oppressive, but it doesn't matter what we think in the material world because we don't have a perspective that is accurate. We're covered by ignorance, and therefore the speculations we come up with are influenced by the three modes of material nature, and they're not helpful. It is helpful to find a perfect source of knowledge, and when you find a perfect source of knowledge coming from a perfect person, Krishna is that person, then you can accept it. Otherwise not. So the Stita Dhir Muni has come to this understanding that I'll take my knowledge, thank you, just from Krishna. He is called Prashanta Nishesha Manoratantara. That's for those who are keeping score at home, from the Stotra Ratna 43. From where? Okay, Shastrasar Prana, take note. Or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculation as speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. He is called a Muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. Imagine if you thought like that. Whatever part of material nature comes to you and you think like, well, I deserved much worse than that. Well, let's not say if you felt like that. Let's say if you had a friend who felt like that. What would you think of that person? Thank you. Wow. Huh? Wow. Would they be unpleasant to be around? No? it's kind of an interesting position to take, that whatever kind of misery came to me is like, oh, I deserve much worse than that. Not an unpleasant type of person. And he sees that his miseries, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and is able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active, and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment, because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is never at all angry, even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. So this is the kind of muni that is successful. One's already concluded that I accept everything from Krishna and his representatives, and everything else I leave to Krishna's control. And Krishna's the supreme controller. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. So Krishna controls everything. That's what that verse says. Isn't it? Ishavasyam idam sarvam. How much is sarvam? It's everything. That's a lot, right? So, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat means everything in the universe is controlled by and owned by the Lord. Animate or inanimate, that covers everything. It's in the contract. So, and he'll set aside something. If he sets aside something as a quota, then you accept that and you use it in Krishna's service. If it gives you more, you're not upset about it. Just, I'm going to use it in Krishna's service. You don't become overly jubilant. Look what I got. It's not yours. And if he gives you less, then there's no less in Krishna consciousness, because one who's absorbed in hearing about Krishna never feels like they need anything except for more hearing. And if you have a little facility for hearing where you're undistracted and you can go on doing the process, chanting Hare Krishna, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and so forth, then you don't need anything. That's an advantageous situation to be in. So the Stita Dhir Muni is not disturbed because material nature, there's an onslaught. Someone look up onslaught. That ought to be interesting. It doesn't sound good though, right? An onslaught of material miseries. Imagine a person who's not disturbed despite an onslaught of material nature. Imagine. So this is Stita Dhir Muni. And the person's a Muni. He's the greatest of thinkers because he links his intelligence to Krishna. And he doesn't try to figure out, doesn't poke his nose in places that aren't needed to be overly intelligent. In fact, Krishna says in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that those who argue endlessly about topics for which they've not had any realization are simply wasting their valuable human life. And he said that it's a way of ignoring me, actually, to argue about topics that you have no realization, endlessly, on and on. The zero's flat, right? What's that to you? Sorry, let me get inordinate response. Go ahead.
Onslaught is a noun.
It's not flat, by the way. Go ahead.
Attack, aggression, or assault from the 1620s on slate, apparently somehow from or on analogy of Dutch on slang, which means attack.
Yeah, kind of we feel under attack. So Krishna is perfectly capable of protecting us. We can see from his pastimes in Mathura, Krishna was attacked himself. How many times? 18 times by Jarasandha. At the time Krishna was present, we know from the 10th canto that there was a buildup of very materially powerful personalities. They came in the guise of kings, and the earth was feeling a burden from that. It's one of the reasons we know from the beginning of the 10th canto that the Bhumi herself, earth, personified, yes, everything's personified, went to Lord Brahma, because he's their temple president, GBC or whatever, and said, you know, it's a problem. The earth is, the universe is managed through a hierarchy. And she went and told him that there's a problem here. I'm really feeling it right now. Historically, it means the earth was being utilized by people who had ill intent. And then they were disguising themselves, and they were coming here to the earth, pretending like they were doing their duty, but actually they were trying to exploit everybody. That happens. And so Krishna said, I'll come, and I'll deal with it. And of course, he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya Sadhunam, one of the main reasons he comes is to uplift his devotees. He wants to encourage everybody and say, here I am. And here's how, here's what I look like, here's what I do, and to give mercy to his devotees. He actually, when he's present, he reaches out to his various devotees, like Vidura, he's a great devotee, and then we have the story of Shrutadev and Bahulashva. This specifically talks about a rich man and a poor man, and Krishna equally gave himself to both of them, and unlimited stories about that. But then he also says that he cuts down the bad elements. So Krishna appeared, and there were many bad elements. When he left Vrindavan, he went to Mathura, and Jarasandha, who is one of the main bad actors on the planet at the time. We know that when Yudhishthira wanted to perform the Rajasuya Yajna. Rajasuya Yajna was a way to establish the king of all kings in the world, in the way of kingly management. And it required that one send out a challenge horse to all the kingdoms and say, if I'm going to do the Rajasuya Yajna, which is a bona fide process of establishing that my ideologies and the way that I'm going to rule the kingdom is the best. And if you have a dispute with me, then let's fight it out. You can challenge. Otherwise, you got to give something towards the cause. Otherwise, you'd have to donate to help the Rajasuya Yajna go on. So some people were friends and some people were enemies, but you had to make sure that everybody had been given an opportunity to either object and fight or to go along with the process. Now, Yudhishthira is a devotee. In fact, he's mentioned as one of the Haridasavarya. There's three Haridasavarya's, three superlative devotees. One of them is Uddhava, another is Govardhan, and another is Yudhishthira. So Yudhishthira, why would he perform a yajna or a ceremony to show that he was the king of all kings? Well, because he wanted to glorify Krishna, because he knew, I'm a devotee, and he wanted to show that devotees are supposed to be in charge because Krishna wants to maintain dharma, the natural course in the world, so that people can make advancement in their lives. And when you have somebody who's not a devotee in charge of things, then there's a degradation of dharma. So Yudhishthira wanted to establish himself to glorify Krishna and to show that Krishna is all-powerful and he's a representative of him. So in the process, he had to challenge all kings. Jarasandha was a great problem. He is a demoniac king. Interestingly, however, he studied the Vedas. I think there's some history that other modern demoniac leaders who had started various wars in the world, not mentioning any names, but they also looked to the east and studied some sections of the Vedas. That's why when you see the Vedic swastika, and most people in the West think that relates to a political party of the past, whose name will go unnamed at this point. But Jarasandha was like that, and Krishna had encountered him many times, because in Mathura, Jarasandha had come to fight with Krishna, and he brought with him armies, significant armies. Krishna didn't have an army in quantity that matched Jarasandha's, but because Krishna is so powerful, and Balaram, who was with him at the time, was easily able to defeat all of Jarasandha's armies. In fact, when Jarasandha came, it was like an ocean of soldiers with various kinds of weapons that had come to Mathura. And suddenly, 2 chariots appeared, one for Balaram, one for Krishna, along with their requisite weapons. They just appeared. And that's how Krishna's energies work. So Bhavika Jnana Bala Kriya Cha means that they all work automatically. When we chant Hare Krishna, or when we hear about Krishna, then we're directly in contact with Krishna and his energies. And that's why we'll find that by a lifetime of hearing and chanting and worshiping Krishna, then our life seems to be charmed, despite the fact that we're in the middle of the onslaught. So is Krishna and Balaram. They were in the middle of the onslaught of the attack of Jarasandha, but their chariots appeared. They got on their chariots, and they killed all of the armies of Jarasandha. And then Balaram had gone after Jarasandha and captured him, was tying him up. But Krishna said, let him go. Why do you think he did that? Let him go. Huh? He'd bring more of your people. And that happened 17 times. It's a great lesson unto itself, because although they were killed each time, that is Jarasandha's soldiers, every time he went back, he regrouped. And this is what the conditioned soul does, life after life. Regroups, and somebody gives bad advice and says, no, you can do it this time. You just have to take my course. You just didn't take my course. You got to take a course on positive thinking. Then you can overcome the onslaught. And in a similar way, Jarasandha was affected because he was a materialist and he had great faith in his own power. But he was defeated over and over and over again, 17 times. That's a lot to have your whole army wiped out. And Krishna's purpose was to wipe out the demoniac forces on the earth. So he invited the prospect of him going back, regrouping, and coming back again, because if you want to bring it to my doorstep, it makes it easier for me. I don't have to go search them out individually. We'll do it wholesale. So that's what happened with Jarasandha. In any case, Krishna made arrangements for his devotees, especially during the 18th time when Krishna was attacked by Jarasandha and Kalyavana at the same time. Without going into the details of Kalyavana, the point was Krishna transferred all his devotees to safety. He put them in a city that was constructed in the middle of the ocean called Dwaraka. And where do we have another Dwaraka? Los Angeles. It's pretty close to the ocean. And Rukmini Dwarkadish are there. So similarly, Krishna created a city for his devotees, and he transferred them. When? Do you like moving? Somebody's moving today, right? It's moving day? Priya's moving? I hate moving. Especially when you get to the last part. You got all the major stuff moving, then what's all this other little parts? Do I need these or not? It's such a hassle. So Krishna moved his devotees, all of them, to Dwaraka in the middle of the night. They didn't even know it till they woke up in the morning and say, wow, I think we got an upgrade. Everything was in a much better state than where they were before, and Krishna wanted to protect his devotees. When you talk about protection and Krishna protecting his devotees, there's a prime example that Krishna took his devotees out of harm's way. Meanwhile, even though Krishna's supreme enjoyer, he took the time to eliminate all these bad actors, specifically because he wanted to protect his devotees, and especially he wanted to protect his devotees in Vrindavan. He didn't go back to Vrindavan because he didn't want to attract attention, and the demons see Vrindavan and then go there and harass his pure devotees in Vrindavan. So Krishna, in his various pastimes, would ceremoniously defeat these great demons, and he would display his unlimited power. Even nonchalantly, he killed many demons. In the interim, when he was fighting, for instance, with Shalva, he made a little drama because Shalva was another one of the demons who had specifically performed a sacrifice, and when he got his benediction fulfilled, what did he want? He wanted an airplane that could harass the Yadu dynasty. Imagine what a desire that is. You're so envious. You just want to get an airplane that you can harass people with, especially Krishna's people. That was his mentality. And he came and attacked Krishna. Pradyumna held him off, and then Shalva took to mystic incantations and showing phantoms. He came before Krishna on the battlefield after he had been mortally wounded, and he showed an image of him holding Krishna's father, Vasudeva, captive, and then he said, "Watch, I'm going to cut off his head." And it was all conjured by some mystic potency, and then he did that. And Krishna likes the drama also. As Queen Kunti says, Maya Javanikachanam Ajad Hoksajama Avyayam Nalakshate Mudadrisha Nata Daroyata, which is that Krishna, you're just like on a play, showing a play, you're an actor on a stage, and you come in these different moods and dresses and stuff, and you show these different dramas. So one of the dramas was when he saw, although Krishna's omniscient, he knows everything, he likes to play these parts, and he showed this human side that he lamented. He began to cry, "Oh, my father has been killed." And then he rallied, and then he killed Shalva. And he killed these demons very easily. After all the drama, he would employ his Sudarshan Chakra, which is a devotee of Krishna. And the Sudarshan Chakra would just cleanly cut off the head of the demon. And he would move on to the next one. Just like after killing Shalva, he got news that Dantavakra and Vidurata had landed near Mathura, and Krishna immediately went there on a chariot at the speed of the mind to dispatch of those two demons as well, because they were very close to Vrindavan. And he wanted to very quickly kill them, which he did. That's the time when he went back to Vrindavan, actually, because he was already in Mathura. He was in the neighborhood. So he went back there for another 2 months to Vrindavan. Krishna's pastimes are transcendental, they're real, and they're in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And if one avails oneself to hearing about the pastimes of Krishna in the Bhagavatam, then the mind becomes purified and enchanted. Yet pada pankacha palasa vilasya bhakta. The vilas, or the play of Krishna, the beauty of Krishna's pastimes, that has to come into one's mind and heart. And then one can withstand the onslaught of material nature. Om Tat Sat. So let's see if I told you had to pay attention. I told you way back when I was reading the purport. So let's just take a couple of reflections, anything that you heard that stuck in your mind. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, thank you for the nice class. The one I liked is 2 points. Actually, one is that the Sthitadir Muni has nothing to do, especially devotees, with mental speculation. They're finished with that business. And also, they're always in Krishna consciousness. And that reminded me a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. I don't exactly recall the verse, but it's about the 6 type of great moon is considered, and the philosophies, 6 philosophies which comes from them, they are considered as alligators in the water, and Krishna's Kabir has advised us not to get carried away with those philosophies.
Yes, it's especially important to know that the Sthitadir Muni is beyond mental speculation. The way that one becomes successful is to find the perfect source of knowledge. And Krishna, because his senses are perfect, they're not affected by the 3 modes of material nature, and he never comes under the influence of material nature. His transmission of knowledge is perfect. And if we take that source and then pass it on as it is, without altering that, then we'll be representing Krishna properly. And this is the only process that Krishna asks us to take up, and Lord Chaitanya asks us to take up, is to hear the knowledge and not speculate about it or become overly intelligent, but to represent it so that other people can take advantage of it. And last night when I saw people coming down the street and they would take a book, I was just thinking about where they'd go with that book and what it would be like to read it for the first time. It's not an ordinary book. It's not like a Mark Twain book. Mark Twain was an enchanting writer, but it was just, there were some human observations and observations about history and society, but ultimately it's literature that doesn't help us to overcome the onslaught of material nature, whereas every word and sentence in the Bhagavad Gita as it is has that effect. So if somebody opens it and reads anywhere, they'll have that experience. And if they don't realize it right away, they'll realize it later. A couple more reflections? Yes, Kennedy got her hand up first. And then Kuladeepa, Prabhu. Then Madhava Govinda, was that your hand up? Okay. 1,
Hare
2,
Krishna.
3.
In the purport, I was really thinking about how people perform any level of mental gymnastics to bridge the gaps in their intelligence because they don't want to surrender to knowledge. Because in the material conception of surrender, a lot of times people think it means loss. And there's so many times that we let our pride get in the way, our anarthas hold us back. But when we surrender, we can truly be given that gift of knowledge by Krishna, as it said. And it's interesting to me as well that the perspective of transcendental knowledge is situated on an entirely different realm, and yet you have all of these munis running around trying to find that perfect perspective, and yet it's right above them. So.
Yes. Thank you very much. Koladeep's next.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So while you were reading 256 purport, I was recalling the pastimes of Durvasa Muni Ambarish Maharaj. There Srila Prabhupada also mentions the same verse that the Munis, they are always fighting among themselves. And Durvasa Muni, he is, even though situated in a very powerful platform, but still he couldn't understand the relationship between the Lord and his devotees. And he offended Ambarish Maharaj. So his consciousness level in his spiritual understanding was lower than Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj knew how to engage everything in Krishna's service, and he was doing it, whereas Durvasa Muni, he couldn't even understand like how Ambarish Maharaj is so close to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he also quotes this verse, that the Mahabharata verse, Banaparva and everything. So it was very interesting that even somebody like Durvasa Muni, who could actually bless Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani, they can actually offend the pure devotee. And yeah.
Yes, anyone can have that experience and power. Not that we want power, but one experiences the power of Krishna when we submissively accept what he says. And Prabhupada would often comment about how this is not me, I'm not doing this. I'm just following what my Guru Maharaj told me to do, when Krishna says to do. And then one sees how one becomes an instrument. The contrast between Durvasa Muni, who had attained great mystic potency by his own endeavor, and Ambarish Maharaj, who's a pure devotee, and his only intention is to please Krishna, is especially marked in the Bhagavatam to show us that it's by following Krishna, being surrendered to Krishna, that we attain power. And I've seen also in those who are intellectually inclined, I saw it in my mother actually, because I noticed that although I took to Krishna consciousness, she appreciated it, and she would only touch the subject really from a sociological point of view, as that was her major. That's what she taught. But when it came time for was the signs when she was to give up her body, that pretense that I'm going to figure this out from a sociological point of view, or all accept my authorities. She had her authorities in that realm. Then there's a noticeable change, because at a certain point we realize that Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda Muna Mate. It's a famous saying that all your word jugglery, some people are so expert at Sanskrit, they take that as the main point. It's like, oh, I know the Shastras inside and out. I can bend them to mean anything and so forth. And many people do that. You would be hard put, well, actually, to find people more intelligent, but then they misuse their intelligence to try to misrepresent what Krishna says. So I saw that there's a time, if somebody has some pious credit somewhere, that a person comes to admit, I'm lost, no matter how smart they are, and no matter how many authorities they've assumed in their life, relative authorities. There is a time when the soul comes to this reckoning that, oh, I get it, I'm in an ocean, I need help. If we can come to that point preemptively, before it's forced upon us, and take Krishna's good advice, sarva dharman parityaja, find a way to give up our own ideas for grandeur in the material world, including that I know better than everybody else, I know better than Krishna, and so forth, then one becomes unexpectedly more powerful than one ever thought. And it's not for the sake, again, of being powerful, but it's a recognition that Krishna is willing to work through anyone, use such a person who's submissive. And it doesn't matter how seemingly insignificant the person may be. In the Gaudiya Math, Prabhupada was a householder, whereas most people were sannyasis. And I think, though, that there were a lot of his godbrothers are very surprised at how did he get empowered? And this is a point Prabhupada made again and again, like, who am I? To a lot of people in the Gaudiya Math, he was a Johnny-come-lately. Like, who is this guy? We've been with Guru Maharaj our whole time. But there's a contrast. Some of them were sent on missions to England, and because they didn't hold the same mood as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, when he noticed that they had changed, and so he called them back, and they were, well, by some accounts, relatively unsuccessful. On the other side, you find Prabhupada, who went without funding and without anybody significantly, no significant crowd to see him off and so forth. But he said it again and again, and the magic happened because he adhered to his spiritual master's instruction. Okay, Madhav Govinda Prabhu. And then Mayapur Bihari, there you are. Are you in America?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, that's
I'm
good
home.
news.
Yes.
All right. I'll call on you next. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the very nice class. I was appreciating the point from the purport that one who is Sitadhira Muni, he is not affected by the threefold miseries. But then I was also thinking that people in this material world, there is also the idea that one may become hard-hearted, that one doesn't get affected by the emotions that are arising. The emotional, whatever one goes through difficulties or whatever the emotional things happen, one doesn't get affected by that. So I have just a follow-up question for that. So is it that how is it that the persons who are Sitadhira Muni, how is it that they...
Right. Yeah, so first of all, we should understand that being affected by the modes is a debilitated condition. When we're affected by the modes, we can't be as emotionally effective. We don't have the same emotional intelligence as a person who's not affected by the modes. I'll give you an example. End of life. It's an important time to see who's effective and who's not emotionally to deal with the situation. I've seen in several cases, and even in the case of my own family, that some people were not emotionally equipped to be there near the end. They didn't even know what to say. Like, bye. I can't be here. I don't want to watch the rest of this. I've seen it repeated many times in families where there's a devotee and then, say, the matriarch of the family or father is leaving on their final days, and many people in the family will just not know what to do. They have no preparation for it because they're affected by the modes of nature. Vimuda nanupashyanti, Krishna said. I quoted earlier from the Bhagavad Gita. They can't see it. They don't know what to do. And how can you have properly placed emotion for somebody who's leaving the world if you don't see what's happening? You may have emotion. It's like, oh, they're so emotional. It's like the person who's leaving is like, would you stop crying? You don't even know what's happening here. You don't get what's happening to me. You have to deal with me properly. And even one of my god sisters had told me that she came from a tight-knit Jewish family, and she had joined the Hare Krishna movement and become an elevated soul, still is today, a strictly practicing devotee. And her name's Samapriya. And her mother was leaving the world. She had been disowned by at least one of her brothers and cold shouldered by the rest of them because, she wasn't there for Hanukkah and, other kinds of ceremonies. She was out, Hare Krishna, or whatever. And when her mother was leaving the world, she had 3 months to live, Samapriya came back to be with her and really to take care of her. And the rest of the family, including the brother who had become so angry with her for apparently estranging herself from the family, he had watched. He couldn't be there for the final days. And after her mother passed, their mother passed, he came back to her and made amends. And he said, I apologize. He said, now I understand that you're the only one who could have been with her like this in her final days because of the way you've lived your life. Pashyanti jnana chakshusha. Even if one has just preliminary knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, one knows how to emotionally give support, give emotional support, I should say, emotional support to somebody who's in that condition. Yes? So we're getting the hook. It's time to end. Okay. Mayapur Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. A small question, Maharaj. The word mental speculation, I've been hearing it, always since so. I just wanted to confirm, I understand what exactly mental speculation
means.
Is it...
it leads to an impersonal conclusion. Means you went off the road. Like how'd you end up in the ditch? You ended up with an impersonal conclusion. That's mental speculation. I think, well, you start speculating. Well, the deities look different everywhere. Therefore, Krishna is not really a person. It's imaginary. Ultimately, really what it is there's only, the impersonal. And that's mental speculation. You drive right off into a ditch. Whereas when it's applied properly, when you apply your intelligence properly, then you accept that there is a source of knowledge which is perfect. And in the Gita, Krishna says, Avyaktam vyaktimapanam manyate mam abhutaya param bhavam ajananto. You better know this. You got a few days. Mamavyam anutamam. That's 7th chapter, Bhagavad Gita 24? 23? 22? Huh? 24. And Krishna says, it's not like that. I'm not impersonal, and then all of a sudden I become a person out of the impersonal. I'm always a person. So, Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrita. People think like that. They're illusioned. And their speculation is being informed by the modes of material nature. But if your speculation is being informed by the Bhagavad Gita and you say, oh, okay, it's confirmed here, he's not impersonal. Or whatever conclusion you come to, you say, here it is, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, it's lined up. Feel free to wander throughout the whole Shastra as long as you come to the conclusion that's aligned with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. It's not like don't use your mind. You can be brilliant scholar and thinker. There are so many brilliant scholars and thinkers amongst the acharyas and even within our ISKCON organization. We just saw one of them last week, right? And, he aligned all that stuff. That was his spiritual speculation about how this all fits together. And the conclusion is, Krishna's a person, you're a person, you should surrender to Krishna, and here's how all these things are lined up with Shastra. And it's a very satisfying, to hear that, because everything lines up properly. Yes?
Something you said reminded me of a godbrother told me, he was Srila Prabhupada's servant, and Prabhupada was asking him something about some technology, not like these days, but, and he started the sentence with, I think. And Prabhupada said, when you start a sentence with, I think, you should finish it in the closet.
And it's difficult to resist that impulse, and that's one of the conditionings of the soul, is to want to cheat. I don't know, but I'll make something up because it makes me the authority. Last point. Braja Bihari Prabhu said, you never lose credit by giving credit where credit is due. And when you're doing in spiritual circles, if you give Krishna the credit, you won't lose credit. Why do we sing in the Guru Vandanam, Abhijash Gushuk Tribhuvana? It means that this person we're glorifying, Prabhupada, is famous all over the three worlds. And he's like, yeah, but I didn't say anything. I just repeated what Krishna says. That's all right. You're the one who did it. Everybody else becomes one of the also-rans. They're lined up with everybody else who's fighting it out under the modes of material nature, trying to find supremacy. But the Stita Deer Muni, who rises above it, as you said, Kennedy, they're dealing above the modes of material nature. So we have to leave it there. And I'm very grateful to have this family, to be with all of you. We're commuting these days from Burlingame to India. We're leaving again on Tuesday. Of course, Krishna willing, will show up tomorrow for more chanting, dancing, and feasting, right? But we're leaving again, and this time I think we're gone for 22 days. But I just want to say that our hearts are here. Our energy is fully dedicated to a development of the project here in every sense of the term, in every aspect that we can think of that will be helpful for the members of the community and those who would come into it. And as long as Krishna gives us breath and strength, we'll be here to carry that out. That's our intention. So we're very grateful to all of you because we know that you're very capable, and you're in the top percentile in all categories of intelligence, wealth, and so forth. But you give your heart and soul to this all-important project, and heart especially. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev, if you so desire, please empower us to work together to expand Krishna consciousness in the Bay Area in such a way that it will be a glowing example for people all over the world, and will encourage people to take to Krishna consciousness and the process of pure devotional service. Om Tat Sat. Thank you for considering our request. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Now we have two quick announcements. The first comes from Jai Madhava Prabhu, who's presenting on behalf of the Bhakti community.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the opportunity. As you know, Bhakti community is a community of spiritual seekers who help people make progress in Bhakti Yoga. So whenever you go give out books, please do share Bhakti community with them. We do have 5 programs a week: Bhakti on Monday, Bhakti Circle on Thursday, Success Sadhana and Mantra Zone on Fridays, and Women's Circle on Sundays. And people have benefited a lot by engaging with others. As Maharaj several times says, that it's not time, but it's taste. And once you have taste, you naturally gravitate towards whatever interests you. So what happened was, a week ago we had Mantra Zone, which typically happens on Fridays, and that day we had some conflicts. We couldn't arrange for it. So we typically send out sign-off sheet. We didn't send up, and we didn't have the program, so nobody came. But one person still turned up with his mother-in-law, though there was no program sent out, no sign. Typically, sign-up happens. So that Pavani was. She had a hunch somebody is going to turn up, and she was right. But it so happened was because he had the taste, he really wanted it, he came, and kids were there. So anyway, had a program. We had a kirtan program for 45 minutes, 1 hour. Then prasadam was cooked anyway, so we got together and had prasadam as well. And so even though we didn't plan for it, it still happened because Krishna wanted it, and they had taste. So as you bring these newcomers in, and once they start getting the taste, naturally they will keep coming, and it's a positive cycle. We think that we give to them, but what they give to us is a lot more precious than what we think, because from their eyes they are able to show us the gift we have is invaluable. So please do introduce them. And thanks to all the speakers and leaders who have been conducting program. Given winter break is coming up, we are going on a short break. We will resume our programs again in January. But meanwhile, of course, all the members will continue to do book distribution and other activities. So thank you for the opportunity.
What I heard from that is, feel free to go to Jai Madhava and Pavani Bhakti's house anytime. Just knock on the door. Oh, I thought there was a program. And now we have the Team ISV Sankirtan Book Distribution co-leader, Malini Devi Dasi. Please welcome her.
Hare Krishna. We are inching towards our goal for the marathon, where we wanted to distribute at least 73,000 Bhagavad Gitas by January 7th. And I wanted to share that when you want to go out and distribute books, which means you're risking, in the purport we were reading today, that a devotee is daring and active. And in this daring and active act when you're doing, there are a lot of people who try to put some obstacles. So the devotees who were going to Christmas in the park recently, there is one lady who said that, no, you cannot set up a table here, you cannot put a sign, you cannot distribute. But there are other groups who were doing the same, so our devotees are trying to say that if they leave, we can leave. So similar situation like that. But when you do this kind of an activity, trying to take some small risk to distribute or to popularize Krishna, then Krishna becomes so much more pleased than just doing the regular activity. The regular activity is also important, but this pleases Krishna more. So today we have opportunities where you can take a small risk. One is going to downtown Mountain View here, where Kids Sankirtan team, the youth are going out. I saw a message from Kameshwari yesterday that the youth are going down to downtown Mountain View. So if you like to join, that's actually a very nice group to go to because they have the best prasadam. So if you want to join the youth, please contact Kameshwari. She's taking out. And there are other spots, many spots that the Western Sankirtan team are going out. And towards the end of this marathon, they don't go out on weekend only. They're going out every single day. So Kautukarna Prabhu, Adinath Krishna Prabhu, Krishna Sakha Prabhu, and many devotees, they're going out every single day of the marathon so that they want to distribute many books. So Kautukarna Prabhu, would you like to say where your team is going?
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for the opportunity. So one team is going to Santa Cruz. Krishna Sakha Prabhu is taking the team there. So it's downtown and end of the year. So we are hoping there will be a lot of visitors there. And anybody, please go there. Santa Cruz is very, very nice people. Kennedy came from Santa Cruz, so you can imagine, So it's such a nice place to distribute books if you want to go for the first time. Really nice people and really nice conversations. We also have another team going to Berkeley. There is a holiday street fair there. We went there last time. Vaishnav Toshni Prabhu and Adinath Krishna Prabhu. We had one person joining from there on Bhakti community. Brianna, she joined this past week. So we are going again. Vaishnav Toshni Prabhu and Adinath Krishna Prabhu, if you like to go to Berkeley. And one team is going to Milpitas. I'm going to Milpitas Walmart. We have a very nice family visiting. They visited us in the morning, Banjo and Kabul. Yeah, so his dear wife and there were 2 kids. They actually chanted in the morning with us. They came from Walmart Milpitas while we were distributing. Hare Krishna. Yeah, we also have another spot for Palo Alto downtown if you like to join. Malini Mataji is taking a team there. Hare Krishna. Christmas in the park in the evening. So it's on. So Achyuta Chaitanya Prabhu is going there with Krishna Sakha Prabhu after Santa Cruz. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. And also we wanted to let everyone know that last Sunday we had a fundraiser for the book distribution marathon. And I know many devotees were not present. So tomorrow, His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu and Her Grace Nirakula Mataji will be there for the last Sunday program before they travel. So we will give one more opportunity. So please invite your friends and everybody will get those gifts as well for those who participate. So please.
There's only a few left.
Yes, Prabhu, there's
a few left. And for those of you, there's been a lot of emails and calls, people saying, I missed it last week. We apologize. We're going to make it up for you, tomorrow evening. If you're listening, sorry.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. We have to vamonos in a minute. A point I wanted to add on to the announcements of we are meeting people on in various venues, not the least of which is Walmart, door to door, Christmas in the park, and so forth. Then we have the Bhakti community, which is specifically designed to be part and parcel with our book distribution. It's the same program because we have a long journey to assist people with. It's a long way. Parimara Gitavyam, Krishna says in the Gita, like take on the long journey back home, back to Godhead. So we don't want anybody to step in a hole, what to speak of, fall in a gap somewhere. And therefore we close the gaps. One of the most important aspects of our entire program is to make friends with people. We have our own friends, and we have a way of gravitating towards them, of course. That's why friends are friends. But when people come to Krishna consciousness, it's the glue that holds together our relationships, is this friendship. And I just want to, and I'll say it probably at other times as well, emphasize how important it is when you see somebody to go out of your way to just make friendships with them. And when people come, they're looking for a connection with a person or persons who they feel they can resonate with. And I must say, and I've said it before, all of you that I know are the most affable of personalities in the world, what to speak of respectable. And if you give your heart to people when they come and just make friends, if you see somebody coming and you notice them, don't assume they already have, they're taken care of by Pavani Bhakti or, Kautu Karnava's got it covered. Try to make friends. It's really important to people to know that at least we're open to being their friend. And we don't already have a closed circle. I got my people, you figure it out yourself. Part of the whole Sankirtan experience is really just, we're open for everybody to come in. We want you to be here. We want to be your friend. That's really important. And another debut that's going to happen tomorrow here is we're going to have a booth outside for Bhakti Farms. Bhakti Farms is the cow protection. It was very deliberately designed and connected with ISV from the beginning so that we could have this relationship between our center and a farm where cows are being lovingly taken care of. And Jamuna and Todd had been looking for years. We've known them for decades. They've been to every community in the world looking for a place to invest their expertise in developing a farm community, especially a Goshala. And guess what? They landed here. It's kind of a miracle. It's one of the great assets that we have. And we want to put more and more attention into the cows because our relationship with the cows at Bhakti Farms, and in the future we may extend that, in other ways, but right now it's a very deliberately designed program to give us connection with the cows. So that'll be a booth outside. You can inquire from those who are running it. I think you'll recognize some of them who will be at the booth, not the least of which is our very own Bhaktin Kennedy, who happens to now live on the farm and is helping to milk the cows and so forth. We went there right before we went to India the last time, and it was a heartwarming experience. I saw one devotee was there the other day. If you ever have any anxieties or problems, just go be with the cows and feed them, hug them, scratch their necks. They'll chase you around, and all your anxieties will be chased away at the same time. And I want to finally acknowledge a couple other groups. One is Shamalangi and her Sankirtan team. It's you've evolved this into a very artful presentation, very thoughtful presentation. We notice every time you and your team bring the best of technology. There was a new rug there yesterday that matched the other ones. And it's ever improving, and it's really an incubation for a vision that we've had for a while, which is to make a very appealing Harinam situation that can be expanded in various parts of the city and the country and the world. And finally, I'd just like to acknowledge Sachindra Krishna Prabhu and company who have taken up the process of looking around the temple to see where things could be improved or fixed. Things fall apart when you have a public building, and they're putting, he and his team are putting together a regular course of making sure that things are fixed. So if you have any problems or notice anything broken, he's your person to talk to. Or Halayuda also is part of that team. And finally, the Garland team, thank you very much for your devotion. It really uplifts all of the rest of us by your devotion to making the most beautiful garlands I've ever seen anywhere. Hare Krishna. Case closed. Vanchakalpaduruscha kripasindave vacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha anantakoti vaishnavindiki jai. Do I want to sing the Prasadam prayer? What kind of question is that? Sharidat vijaja jodendriya tahika jibe pele bishaya shakare dharma je divayati loba moisa durmati take jeta katita samsare Krishna bora doyamor kori bare jivajar saprasad anna dilobai shayanamrita pao Radha Krishna gunagao Preme Dako Shri Chaitanya Nitai Preme Dako Shri Chaitanya Nitai Mahaprasade Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Sappa Punya Patandava Dasa Soravate Sare Sadho Kutana Bhagavad Sri Mahaprasada Ki Jai Go Premanande Nitai Gaura Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Nitai Gaura Hari Bo Said it earlier this morning, but we welcome back Hansapriya and Radhabala Prabhu. Hare Krishna. We can breathe again. You have homework. You have to make a friend. At least introduce yourself to somebody you don't know before you go. Heartfelt. Please do that before you leave today. There will be a stampede now, but try to find somebody you can make friends with, and we'll see you at the top. Zig Ziglar. Vanchakalpaduruscha kripasindave vacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Nantakoti Vaishnavindiki jai.